Hello, everyone. I hope all of you are well. Welcome to the second lecture of this training, Soy Excellence Center, Poultry Track, Basic Level. And in this presentation, I'm going to talk mainly about hatchery. And towards the end of the presentation, I'm going to talk a little bit about brooding. But brooding management is going to be discussed more in the third presentation. Before I start, I'm going to start with some general terminology that might be important. So hatchery is a building used to incubate and hatch eggs. Incubate is to provide heat, ventilation, humidity, and turning in a fertile egg to develop the embryo. An incubator is a mechanical device used to incubate eggs. An hatcher is a mechanical device where eggs are placed the last 3 days of incubation for hatching purposes. And here you can see like two differences. Like we are going to have the incubator during the 0 to 18 days, and then the eggs are going to be transferred to the hatchers. Another important terminology is this one. Hatching egg is an egg intended to produce offspring. These eggs should be collected as quickly as possible and handled with care to prevent contamination. A fertile egg is an egg that contains a developing embryo, and let's remember, fertilization occurs around 24 hours prior to oviposition. Infertile egg is an egg that contains only the hen's genetic material, which means a chick can never hatch from that egg. So when you go to the supermarkets and you have the opportunity to buy, 6 eggs or 12 eggs, remember that those eggs are going to be infertile. And in the picture in the right, you can see, the differences or the visual differences between a fertile egg and infertile egg. In the fertile egg, you can see the germinal disc. If mating has occurred and a sperm has fertilized the egg, embryo will start developing there. Following up with some important terminology, setting means placing an egg or a group of eggs in the appropriate environment for incubation to begin. This could be under a broody hen or inside an incubator. And peeping is the act of a chick of penetrating the shell membranes and the shell with his beak. I spoke a little bit about, where incubation starts in my previous presentation, but the Egyptians used these ovens to incubate eggs more than 3,000 years ago. So some of the hatchery management goals is to mimic similar conditions to the broody hen, manage temperature, moisture, and ventilation to provide oxygen, and remove CO2 and heat. Also, provide egg turning and rotation to protect the eggs, to protect the embryo. And the incubation process helps to free up the breeders so they can continue producing eggs and allows the incubation of a large number of eggs at the same time. And the incubation process also helps to control the hatching time and the number of chicks that we are going to hatch. This helps with a better planning for the brooding and the grow out cycle. This is the interior view of a bird's eggs, and here you can see all the different parts. You can see the yolk, and the yolk provides the embryo with nutrients and water. The albumin protects the embryo from damage and bacterial infection, and the albumin provides protein. The chalazi stabilizes the yolk in the center of the egg. Then we have the shell and the shell membranes. They protect the embryo and maintain the albumin in the correct position. And the shell allows for gas exchange. Let's remember that the embryo is going to be producing CO2 that needs to be removed, but it's going to be requiring oxygen. So that gas exchange is important. Then we have the air cell that provides the embryo with the first breath of air. Hatchery management is very important, and if we want to have like a healthy chicks, we need to start with healthy breeders. And the health of the breeder is important, but also we need to focus on the nutrition of the breeders, because that nutritional composition of the breeder feed is going to help with the chick quality as well. Then once that the eggs have been laid, then it is important to do proper egg handling, and also it is important to have a clean hatchery. All these factors, the nutrition and the health of the breeder, the handling of the eggs, and the sanitation and cleaning of the hatchery are gonna play a big role on chicks' health. But it is important to mention that the incubation duration varies among species. So for chicken, it's going to be 21 days. Duck is going to be between 28 and 35 days. Pheasants, 24 days. Quails from 18 to 24 days. Turkeys, 28 days. And then I think the most important part to mention here is that typically, as the birds get bigger, then the time of incubation is longer. Remember, the quality of the chick is going to be influenced by the quality of the eggs. So these fertile eggs should be collected as frequently as possible. It is important to use clean, flat containers. Wash your hands before and after handling eggs. And also, it's important to use enough nesting boxes with clean nesting material, because a low number of nesting boxes is going to result in more floor eggs. Also, it's important to remember that you don't want to incubate dirty eggs. You can remove the organic material by hand, but never wash the eggs. And if there are eggs that are dirty, they can contaminate the incubator. Remember that like the temperature and the relative humidity in the incubator are optimum for bacterial growth, and dirty eggs typically have a higher bacterial load. So some of the eggs that are unsuitable for hatching are going to be dirty eggs. We already mentioned that. Eggs that are cracked, you don't want to incubate those eggs. Small eggs, they are going to lead to small chicks. Remember that chick weight is around 65% of the egg weight. The other part that we are going to discuss later too is that when you have small eggs, because they have a higher surface area, then they can lose moisture faster compared to a normal size egg. Also, you don't want to incubate a large or double yolk, and these eggs won't hatch and can be a potential for they can be a potential source of contamination. Also, you don't want to incubate eggs with poor shell quality, because this is going to lead to higher moisture losses during incubation, and this can lead to embryonic death. It is important to assess the fertility of the eggs, and after fertilization, an egg is going to spend about a full day moving down the oviduct, and during this time, the number of cells in the blastoderm increases. The organization of these cells immediately below the yolk membranes makes it possible to determine an infertile blastodisc and a fertile blastoderm. When fresh, unincubated eggs are broken, the fertile blastodisc is a small white region of around 2 millimeters long, so you can see in that picture, and the white part is going to be irregular in shape. Now, when you have a fertile egg, the blastoderm in a fertile egg is larger. Usually, it's going to be 4 to 5 millimeters in diameter instead of 2 millimeters, and it is always round and uniform, like a white ring with a transparent center. Egg hatching is extremely important. Remember that the exterior of the egg is not sterile. So there is a bacterial load in the egg coming from the breeder and the chicken house, and any microorganism coming in the egg will grow during the incubation temperatures. So if we have a bigger initial bacterial load in the eggs, we are going to have a higher likelihood of problems during the incubation. And contaminated hatching eggs can result in increased embryonic mortality, exploders, which can lead to further contamination, and also they can lead to infected day-old chicks, which can increase the either like the 3 days mortality or the first week mortality at the farm. So sanitation is very important. It's important to start with clean eggs and with clean equipment. So please consider to eliminate clutter and foreign material in the hatchery. Eggs flats, hatching boxes, all that you need to remove, because remember that bacteria can hide and persist in those places. Also, the incubation area should be washable. Concrete is porous and should be sealed. And if you have cracks in the floor, they also should be sealed, because bacteria can hide there, and bacteria can persist there. Also remember that the hatchers is the dirtiest area in the hatchery. So this area must be cleaned after every hatch, and reduction in hatchability can be associated with poor cleaning. Also, the ventilation is very important. Air coming in and going out should be filtered if possible. Hatchability is going to be influenced by breeder nutrition, so each nutrient needs to be present in the egg for a successful hatch. So it's important to pay attention to feed formulation and the breeder's nutrition. The mating activity also is going to influence hatchability. If there is a lower mating activity, then it's going to be lower fertility and lower hatchability. Egg damage, as I told you before, you don't want to incubate cracked eggs. Also, it is important to have a correct ratio between males and females. And also, they need to have the correct body weight, because obese males or females are going to reduce mating activity and egg fertility. And the correct ratio will be 1 male to 10 females. If you have too many males, that can create some fighting. Egg sanitation is also important. Don't incubate floor or dirty eggs. And also egg storage is also very important. A long storage or high temperature will start the incubation process even before you place those eggs in the incubator. So here you can see, an example of a hatchery building plan. And the important things to remember here is that each activity within the hatchery must be physically separated from other areas, and operations must be integrated but not centralized in a single unit. If possible, the movement of eggs and chicks should be in one direction only. And the offices, showers, washrooms, all those areas should be separated. So here you can see one of the areas of the hatcheries. This is the fumigation room, and the fumigation room or cabinet should be airtight and should be equipped with a fan to circulate the formaldehyde gas during fumigation and expel the gas from the building when fumigation is completed. To produce fumigant, potassium permanganate should be mixed with formalin in a ratio of 2 to 3, and an application rate of 53 milliliters formalin and 35 grams potassium permanganate per cubic meter of space is recommended. Then fumigate for 20 minutes at a temperature range that can vary from 24 to 38 Celsius degrees. So there is also a egg holding room or pre-incubation room, and hash and chick quality can be affected if eggs are not pre-warmed before they are set. The eggshell temperature changes in part incubated eggs immediately after more eggs are set, either from the cold storage or after pre-warming. So if you don't do like a pre-warm, or you don't use this egg holding room, what you're gonna see is that as soon as you place those eggs in the incubator, some of those eggs can start sweating. So the definition of the incubator is a device used to stimulate avian incubation by the mother hen. The goal of the incubator is to keep eggs warm at a particular temperature range and at the correct humidity that we will discuss later, with a turning mechanism to hatch high-quality chicks. The ventilation system will remove CO2 and heat and will provide oxygen to the developing embryo. And there are going to be some fully automated incubators that can have hatching rates of around 95%. But as the automation increases, then the price of the incubator most likely is going to increase as well. The management of the incubator is very important. It's important to set the temperature and humidity one day before setting the eggs. And the incubators should be away from windows, air conditioner, or heating vents to avoid temperature variations. And the developing embryos are going to use oxygen, and then they are going to generate that CO2. So the incubators will need good airflow to remove the carbon dioxide and replenish the oxygen. The vents to allow the entrance of fresh air and expel carbon dioxide. And fans are used to circulate the warm air and maintain an uniform temperatures and adequate oxygen level inside the incubator. So as you can see in this graph, as embryo develops, the egg loses moisture. The weight loss up to around 18 days before transfer should be between 12 and 16%. And to avoid excessive moisture loss, the relative humidity of the incubator should be around 60%. So how can you adjust humidity? Well, in the incubator, moisture must evaporate from eggs correctly to ensure hatchability and chick quality. So if you have a low humidity, there is going to be a greater moisture evaporation from the eggs. And this makes a lot of sense, right? If this happens, embryos may adhere to the shell membrane and die, or they might be too weak to peep through the membrane. On the other hand, if we have high humidity, embryos might grow too large and might be unable to move into the hatching position. Some causes of high humidity will be insufficient ventilation or high relative humidity. Some of the signs that you are going to see if there is issue with high humidity is condensations in the incubator's windows. The good news is that we can use the air cells evaluation to monitor how much moisture are those embryos losing. So the air cell evaluation is going to give you a good indication of the humidity, if the humidity is correct in the incubator. And the air cell evaluation can be determined by candling, as you can see in the picture on the right, and can be done a week after incubation has started and during transfer to hatchers. However, it is important to mention that you don't want to candle eggs after turning has stopped because chicks are positioning to hatch. So if you have if you already moved the eggs from the incubator to the hatchers, you don't want to candle, eggs in the hatchers. And moisture evaporation from an egg cause air cell contents to shrink, as you can see again in the picture in your right, which increases the size of the air cell. Prior to hatching, the embryo should occupy 2/3 of the shell, and the air cell should occupy the remaining 1/3. So eggs typically lose between 12 and 16% of their weight during incubation, and this is going to be due to evaporation of water. So increase in the size of the air cell is a sign of moisture loss, and this can tell you if the relative humidity in the incubator is correct. The air cell is where the chicks breaks through when hatching begins. If the air cell is too big, and here big is kind of an ambiguous word because you need to compare with previous hatch. So it's going to be big compared to your previous hatch, or it's going to be smaller compared to your previous hatch based on your egg sizes and the conditions of your incubator. But if the air cell is too big, then chicks might have lost too much moisture and can have problems hatching. If the air cell is too small, then the egg hasn't lost enough moisture. Then the chick will have problems breathing or die when it breaks into the air cell. So you can increase the humidity level in the incubator if you experience problem with eggs losing weight and if the air cell is increasing faster than normal. So if this is happening, is because your humidity is too low, so you can increase the relative humidity. And you can decrease the humidity level in the incubator if the eggs are not losing weight fast enough and the air cell is too small. Higher humidity levels present fewer problems with egg development than lower humidity levels. So these are some of the general recommendations for temperature and relative humidity. From 0 to 18 days, the temperature could be set around 37.5 to 37.8 with a relative humidity of 60%. And then from 18 to 21, the temperature can be decreased from 36.1 to 37.2, and the relative humidity can be increased from 60 to 65 to 70. So just to conclude the first part of this lecture, remember that incubation time varies among bird species. Breeder hen nutrition is very important because it influences hatching egg quality and hatching rate. And during incubation, humidity and relative humidity and temperature should be monitored, as these factors can affect the hatching rate.